I'm going to start us off by saying I'm your moderator, Charish Reid. I'm the author of 2 contemporary interracial romances, The Right Escape and Hearts on Hold. And I'm going to call on each participant. I'm going to say their names, and they're going to give you their bio or introduction. All right, we'll start with Alyssa Cole.
No, I was looking at everyone's last name like, it's gonna be me. Hi, I am Alyssa Cole. Hi, from the Bronx. Woo, Bronx. Sorry, I'm from the Bronx and Jersey City, if anyone's from Jersey City. Okay, so I'm Alyssa Cole. I have ADHD, in case you notice me just start wandering off. I am a romance author who writes historical, contemporary, sci-fi. I also recently wrote a thriller, and my first book was published in 2014. So I've been around for a little while compared to a lot of people in the industry, but a lot of that through this latest round of like diversity and publishing talk. And yeah, that's me.
All right, thank you. Kwana Jackson.
Hi. Oh, you're calling on me. I was like,
yes.
Like Alyssa now, it's like I'm not diagnosed with ADHD, but I'm like a flippity gibbet. And now I'm stuck on the chats. I'm like, somebody shout out New York, please. I'm like looking at everybody where they're shouting out. I'm like, I'm Kwana Jackson. I write under Kwana Jackson. And my book, Real Men Knit, is my most recent title that's out. And I also write under the name KM Jackson. So I've got 2 names, so they're both, equally as whatever you want to call them. But I write contemporary romance under both, contemporary romance with a touch of women's fiction too. I'm a native New Yorker from Harlem, so you'll get a lot of New York vibes in my story. And that's about it. Real Men is my latest release set in Harlem, so it's sort of a love story to where I'm from. So that's about it.
Thank you. Wonderful. Roselle Lim.
Hi, I'm a Chinese-Filipino author, immigrated from the Philippines to Canada. I am living on the north side of the border. My debut, Natalie Tan's Book of Luck and Fortune, came out last year, and Vanessa Yu's Magical Paris Tea Shop came out this year. It's women's fiction with romance in it, like a little bit of romance in it, and a lot of fabulism. In there, and food, lots and lots of food.
Recipes later, maybe?
Yes.
Okay. holding her to that. Thank you. And last but not least, Suleikha Snyder.
Hi, my name is Suleikha Snyder. I write short contemporary romances like Take a Chance on Me, which is set in my home state of Ohio, or possibly Indiana. I can't remember where I said it. Either way, I grew up very close to where that book is set. And I started publishing short fiction in 2011. So 2021, 10 years later, sees me releasing my first full-length paranormal romance, Big Bad Wolf. It comes at the end of January. So it's new genre, new length, whole new world for me. And I tend to, and that's set in New York, because I'm a New Yorker. Even though I grew up in Ohio, I am a New Yorker at heart. It's my adopted city. I miss it. I love it.
I miss it too.
Yeah, shout out to Queens.
I know, we miss you.
I want to, so yeah, I miss Queens. I miss New York, but that's me. And yes, I write interracial romances, primarily featuring South Asian characters from all over the Indian diaspora. So
nice. Shout out to the diaspora. And also, my little credit to New York. I used to be a Long Island kid for 8 years. So
we have to jump you after. We have to jump you after the the panel is over. I'm sorry.
That's
going to virtually be
right.
That's expected.
At least you're not from Staten Island. Oh, like,
That's true. That's true.
Uh-oh.
Okay, sorry. We're kidding. We're kidding if anyone is from Staten Island.
Didn't we
I'm
just go on
sorry.
a tangent real fast? Look at how territorial New York is.
Okay.
We are
to,
a
back to the
mess.
book.
That went whoop.
Sorry.
We want to apologize to any people from Staten Island.
We love you. We love you.
If you're
We love
watching
you.
this, you're awesome because you like romance.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if they do that in Frankfurt where you're from the north side of Frankfurt, so we're going to kick your butt. But that's kind of how it is.
It would be more like a group hug than a jumping. Like later people are going to be like, people at the romance panel were threatening the moderator.
Threatening. This was very
Violent.
triggering for me.
Americans.
I'm from Harlem. I'm from Manhattan. But I don't even know these outer boroughs, so I'm not even part of this fight.
Sorry.
God help
Yeah.
our Canadians.
I'm sorry, Charish.
Sorry, Roselle. Well, I guess,
Roselle's Canadian. She's like, I'm never doing a panel with Americans again. So I'm sorry. Let's go.
They're
on.
just like we thought they were.
All we do is fight.
Hi to Manila. Look, Manila's like, I don't know. Manila's like, those Americans are really mean.
Well, I'm going to start us off with a softball. Who were the diverse writers that made you say, all right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to write my own love story. And I'm going to throw it out to anybody.
I would say for me, it started, the first one that I remember reading and buying when I was 11 was Sandra Kitt's The Color of Love, which I think was one of the first major or widely available, at least where I was, books by a Black romance author. And it was like, oh, okay, this character is like me, and she's like an artist, and I want to be an artist. And this author, when I turned to the back author photo, this author is like me, and I want to be a writer. So that was like the first time I was like, oh, this is maybe at some point something I can do as a profession.
For me, it was Terry McMillan was a huge influence. She was women's fiction, not romance, but even before, not a romance at all, but I remember reading Mama, and just being so drawn into this world. It just felt so very much like the world I was living in, and I hadn't read anything like that, so raw, so much emotion, and that book really got to me. And I was just in love with her from then on. And then reading Disappearing Acts, that just took me over the edge, and you know, I loved it. And I think that was the moment I felt that, you know, I could really write a Black heroine and write something that was real and romantic and, you know, more of my story. Well, it couldn't have been my story. I was really young then, but the stories that I saw, and do that, and you know.
But it was a jumping off point.
Yes.
Saw it, you do it, you realize. Yes. Roselle,
So
what about you?
I've always been a fan of hers. Yeah, so it was her.
For me, it's Amy. Like I have to say Amy Tan, because of the diaspora, like Asian American experience. And then like I thought, okay, look, I see a mirror, a popular mirror that I could see myself in. And then Kevin Kwan's books blew up, and then the movie. I was sobbing at the theater when I saw Crazy Rich Asians. And one of the authors now, like a current author that I really, really love, is Helen Huang and the Kiss Quotient. And I'm like, that's just such. So those are some of the people that inspire me to write.
Oh, nice. Suleikha?
Oh gosh, probably I want to say Mistress of Spices by Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni. She was she wrote a lot of short fiction, and that was the first book by, an Indian and a Bengali from my region of India author that got a little bit sexy. It was almost a romance. They actually turned it into a movie eventually, starring Aishwarya Rai. I can't remember who the male protagonist was played by, but it was the first time I really saw things get a bit sexy by an Indian author. as opposed to a lot of that like literary fiction, you know, Jhumpa Lahiri and stuff, Arundhati Rai, stuff that was serious and really didn't, and angsty and sad about being brown. I mean, no offense to them, but it was a lot of immigrant angst, right? And so I was looking for books where, you know, Indian women got to have some sexy times. And I feel like Mistress of Spices was the first time that I really saw us represented even remotely romantically. And involved food as well. And so I think that's sort of where I was like, okay, I can do this. I can, obviously sexier than that and more romance oriented than that. But I think that was where I kind of realized that we were allowed to step outside of the immigration narrative, which is so popular amongst, you know, the diaspora. Again, I feel like we do a drinking game or like get cookies or candy anytime someone says diaspora.
Oh, it's going to come up.
It's going to come up.
You bring up a good point about the diaspora, which I would like to come back to later in another question. But before we get off of influences, are there any odd or interesting or unexpected influences that you guys have in your writing that come from other mediums within pop culture? Something that fans wouldn't expect. For me, it's like, I love a disaster film, I love an action film, I love a buddy cop kind of situation which has, you know, crazy homoerotic overtones. Those are the best those are the best enemies to lovers love stories that I can think of, and one of these days I'd like to tackle that. But like, you know, what else are you guys using for influence?
I don't think it's necessarily conscious, but I watch a lot of anime. And I think some of the storytelling structures that are a bit different from Western storytelling structures come through sometimes, like particularly in closure with villains. Like villains don't necessarily always die, or if they do die, I mean, and it depends what kind of anime you're watching, but or if they do die, you know, you find out at the last second some terrible, heartbreaking thing that makes you feel bad for the villain. And you know, I don't necessarily do that in my books, but I feel like just some of those things that I like from anime might show up in ways that, and also, like, I do have a book about someone who's obsessed with anime. So.
I remember
how that happens, right?
Yeah, show us. Okay, there we go.
I love that book.
It was very good.
My books are basically like if you took Bollywood films, soap operas, American soap operas, and comic books and put them in a blender and then poured it out in a really bizarre smoothie is what you get with my books. Like it's all of those storytelling influences, you know, like very hyper emotional and over the top, and occasional musical numbers. Like I try.
Okay.
Like I just love to shake up all of those big emotional tropes and bad guys and good guys and tropey things from all three of those particular mediums, and just as I said, a really bizarre but tasty smoothie.
Yeah, that's a smoothie I want to wake up to. So the drama, basically.
Yes.
Okay.
For me, it's some of the same. Like Suleikha, I grew up on soap operas, grew up on All My Children, things like that. I'm still mourning it and have hopes of one day it all coming back. It's like, yes.
Young and the Restless,
Young and the Restless,
all of them.
You were Young and the Restless. I was All My Children. I was all of them. I remember running home to see General Hospital. I would miss the first 10 minutes because school was just 10 minutes away. But running, I had General Hospital pajamas.
Oh, nice. I'm jealous.
I bought the General Hospital wrap.
Okay.
Dr. Noah Drake was it for me. All of that stuff. So I'm very much like soapy kind of tropes. I love sort of long meandering stories. Right now, my world is K-dramas. Like I'm all in on K-dramas, and I've been in on K-dramas for quite a few years now. So I think it sort of shows up in my writing, that sort of soap opera, K-dramas writing where, you know, C-drama kind of feeling where it's the stories are kind of drawn out and slowly, the love stories are slowly told. You know, some people like that in my storytelling. Some people are like, why don't they get to it? They haven't kissed yet. What's going on? And I write very, slow burn romances where they're really not getting to know each other, but they're getting to learn about their love, you know, which is, you know, it was always there, but it takes time to develop, you know, and I enjoy that. I like to see things play out, and, you know, that push and pull. I adore watching that push and pull.
Oh gosh, me too. I used to skip school. I skipped school to watch all my soaps.
You used to skip school to watch. Well, you know, sometimes you have a stomach ache, you just don't feel well, you know, because
I had
it's a
like
big
a
thing
stomach
about
ache
to happen.
at least once
A big twin reveal, you know, a big secret brother happening thing. Somebody's coming back from the dead. These things seriously happen.
My mom used to yell at me. Well, not yell at me. I shouldn't say that. My mom used to be like, "What will watching soaps ever get you?" And it got me. It got me a job at Soap Opera Weekly for 7 years.
There you go.
I was like,
there you go.
Anyway.
You can learn a lot from watching soaps, pop culture. I'm a pop culture junkie. I adore it, and I think you can learn a lot. My daughter, I sent my daughter a very stern email because I love K-pop also. A very stern email because I got her into BTS with videos that she should be watching. And I don't know why she hasn't watched it yet. And I will not accept her phone calls until she watches these videos and gives me a full critique of them.
That's strong language.
Yes.
Roselle, did you have influences?
For me, I love watching, it's kind of the food. I always follow the food documentaries or like Chef's Table or whatever anybody's eating. Like the most recent thing I watched was like American Barbecue on Netflix, and I loved all of the barbecue styles and stuff. But I also like to touch on what you said about anime. Like sometimes I really love how imagery, like you can get, like there's so much told in the visual language of it versus like even the narrative, like, you know, certain colors using themes and stuff like that. Like I love that. And one of the recent animes that I've been watching has been like, I love Full Metal. I'm sure you probably like that as well. And Full Metal Alchemist. I loved Food Wars. Is amazing.
If you ever want to see someone have a foodgasm,
yes, exactly.
Now you guys are
That's what it is.
Anime.
It's such a good one.
Someone just recommended that to me the other day. So like my light bulb went on. I'm like, wait, someone told me to watch that.
It's excellent. Yes, Alyssa's right. There's multiple foodgasms in every episode.
Yes. I'm afraid I'm definitely gonna watch it now.
Love it.
My next obsession.
And make sure the sound is like, it's pretty. I think other people, depending on who's in the house with you, it can be a little weird if suddenly it's just, I'm not gonna do it, but you'll understand when you watch it. But it's a fun show. It's
after the panel. After the panel, you can tell us. Yes.
Everybody's gonna be like quick running to the thing. Someone said, "Wait, foodgasms?" in the chat. They're like, "What?"
You just have to watch it.
Why don't you explain more, Roselle? That's a question.
It's how you feel, like, you know, in your tender bits when you eat like the best food.
And maybe
thank you for that.
Tender bits is gonna be the takeaway from this panel.
You take a bite of food so good that your clothes explode off of your body.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I'm watching this.
This is amazing. That comment was actually from my older sister. Thank you. Thank you, Ronnie, for the tender bits. Love food.
And I need to find something that tastes that good.
Jesus Christ. Okay.
It's like take a bite and the shirt goes.
I'm going to take us back to what I told Suleikha that we'd jump back to, and that's this idea of like telling different stories and how important that would be for, you know, authors of color. Those of you in the audience who have ever heard of the Nigerian author Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, she did a wonderful TED Talk called The Danger of the Single Story, in which she, as an author, talked about this narrow focus that she had based on one version of someone's story, when really they have like a very large background that we don't see. And I think that brings us to this idea of like, well, whoever tells the story about a certain people is usually the person that has the power. And I think that we as romance authors who are people of color who write, we kind of take a bit of that power back when we write a different story. And I'll start with you, Roselle. You know, you come from a couple of different ethnic backgrounds. What does the different story look like for you as an East Asian author?
Well, I explored the immigrant experience for Natalie Tan because that is me, basically me. And in Vanessa, it's more about joy, about like just pure joy and big families. And I find that as an author of color, it's really hard not to get corralled into this idea that you have to write about trauma to gain any kind of literary, like, you know, like accolades and stuff. Like it's more about that. It's about joy. Like for those who can write about trauma, I find that great. Like you do you. But personally for me, I want to see more stories about like joy, about like LGBT experiences, especially in for an AOC and all of those other different varying ones, because again, like it's if that is the only single narrative that, for instance, for me, like, you know, Filipino Chinese, that you're an immigrant, let's say, or the stereotype is when you're Filipino, you're either a nanny or you're working as a healthcare worker, as a nurse. There's so many other experience other than that. And it's like, I find that showing more people those mirrors, those different kind of mirrors, will not only help uplift your own background, but other people looking in to see that there's more. There's just more to see.
Yeah, and this can be especially complicated, I've found on Twitter. Everything is complicated on Twitter.
Yes.
But especially with the Black experience, it is very fraught with a lot of different ideas of what Blackness looks like. And then we get into gatekeeping, and then we get into who is Black enough, and is your story authentic enough? And I feel like we're getting to the point where people are dying to have more joyful tales be told, as Roselle pointed out. We just want to be happy.
Yes.
And we want to fall in love, because we do, and we want to show that to people. Your thoughts?
So I think, well, first I'm going to address the trauma thing, because I write some traumatic shit in some of my books, but I also write joyful things. And even in the books with trauma, there is joy tied up in that, which is partially the point of some of those books. And that's mostly my historical books, my historical romances. But, and this is not like coming, this is not like coming at Roselle, because I think it's probably a similar thing. Like you were saying, your first book was about immigrant experience, because it was also partially your experience. And I think sometimes, I actually get like really annoyed sometimes when people say we want books with joy, like on social media, because a lot of those books exist and people overlook them. And the books are coming out and then people overlook them to say that we want them. And the books are there. That's why I get annoyed, because it's like, okay, I am retweeting how many books a day, how many books a week that are like pure joy from marginalized groups. And then people will be like, these kinds of books don't exist. So for people who are like, I just want to make that clear for people who might not know that much about romance. These books exist. They have existed for a long time. All the people here are currently writing them too. And so they do exist. And I think people do need to kind of look into backlists more, look into things that exist already too, because especially with Twitter, social media, the fast pace, like, well, I've never seen it, so I don't think it exists. This also comes into play with like sapphic romance and things like that, where people be like, we really need some of this. And it's like,
they're out there.
There's a difference between, like there's a difference between that gets kind of overlooked sometimes with something not being plentiful and something not existing, and us needing more things. And this happens with Black romance, with we need more Black romance. There's a lot of Black romance. There, you know, Kamani was going on for years until it was recently, and that there are Black romance authors who have been writing for years and like decades at this point. So like, I always try to balance the fact that we need more of these things, but also these things exist and people have been doing it for a long time. And those people need more attention, and we need to put more attention on the books that exist and and encourage the people who are creating these things, and encourage, you know, as a lot of people have been over the last decade, you know, more than a decade, but just talking about from like things I have personally witnessed, have been pushing for diversity and romance and joy in romance. And I'm gonna stop. I'm not gonna like monopolize the whole thing, but I do think, I think that like, you know, there are so many different variations of books that people need. And sometimes people do tend to focus on like the negative, but like there are books, every book kind of has its audience, and there are all different kinds of books that are needed. And definitely more books about joy. I think just in this particular time period, especially, everything is so hard that people are really looking for something that they can just find comfort in. But I do think, I lost track of my train of thought. I will come back to it later.
Well, you were saying that basically this is a more nuanced situation than what I previously suggested. You're saying that they're out there, they're written by indie authors, you know, people
and traditionally published,
and traditionally published, self-pub, you know, they're out there. So we need to maybe reposition the discussion as to what we need versus like, let's do
and
some
also
research.
I think I did want to touch on too the, you know, the idea of what gets published and kind of how those books are perceived. You know what? I'm gonna stop for now. I'll come back to
I'll jump in a little bit. Can I jump in a little bit?
Go ahead.
And then you pick it up again, Alyssa. I'm trying to remember the original question a little bit.
This idea of
the single story question. The single story question. It's hard. It's not, well, it's hard, but it's not that hard. I think my feeling there, when we get into people being, you know, sort of influenced by the single story, and I think for years, and I can only speak to what's been going on in America, and I, you know, my personal story, you know, I've been tweeting we need diverse romance for 5 years, 4 years and change, 5 years since my grandmother passed away. And it started out only just as a morning thing for me. And then it just sort of spirals from there. I don't know how much I'm gonna, you know, tweet it anymore. And I hate, you know, honestly, it's painful every time I do it. But it's sort of come from the notion of publishing and entertainment profiting off of this sort of pain narrative. And pain is what has sold well over the years and still continues to sell well. The immigration story, and it's so hard, and you know, everything is just pain, 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 pain. The slavery story, that's all we have. We don't have any joy. How can we be joyful? How can
I
we
don't
be?
really,
And
okay, I'm sorry, but I do have to cut in here because there are not that many books about slavery,
no,
like
not
that
that many
are
books, but
fiction.
no, I'm
There
not
are
saying
more
not many
books about
books.
Black joy than there are. I am going to, I mean, you know, Toni Morrison, obviously, if she's writing about slavery, that book is going to be more popular. But I don't actually agree with this narrative
But
because
when I'm
there are
saying,
there are more Black romance novels about joy than there are about Black, like by far than there
but
are
when I'm saying
about slavery.
historically, when I'm saying I'm looking historically in entertainment
Okay.
and as a whole, and looking at the sort of segregation, I'm going to the segregation of our books. And even if you have a joyful book, there's something in it that is sort of, say if you have a book by a Black author, it's going to have been segregated. I'm going back to when books were segregated, that sort of thing. And it's put into a sort of civil rights kind of story, a struggle. It's got to be a struggle kind of story. You know, I'm not talking right now, this time period, even though there are still segregated lines and in some places, not all, but some places, things like that. It's sort of that othering kind of thing.
Well, I think
You
we have
can't
the
be,
same. I think we have the same critique when it comes to film. You know,
to film, when you look at film, you know, we have some, we you know, had a boom of Black rom-coms at a certain time, but you know, you don't get nearly as many romantic comedies or things like that. But the big blockbuster movies will be the struggling stories or things like that. It's not so many joyful stories. In indie, it's different.
Well, there's a
But
chance that this might come back up within the Q&A, and
you know, hopefully it's changing. It's definitely, not hopefully, it is definitely changing since things have been changing, but it's been a long time, you know, it's been a long time coming. I'm going back to the 90s and the 80s and things like that.
But in
when
the
you've got
90s and 80s,
years
there was
of,
Brenda and Bev and Rochelle and Gwen Forrester. Like, they weren't writing struggle stories. I don't
no, they
think this.
weren't writing struggle stories, but what I'm saying is they weren't as readily available as their white counterparts. They definitely were not writing
Oh yeah,
struggle
no,
stories, but the fact that they weren't made as regularly available
yeah,
as
yeah,
their
yeah.
white counterparts, that so many people
marketed.
weren't able to see them. They weren't
Yeah.
easy to find. You
Yeah,
know, my
yeah.
grandmother could not easily, living in Harlem, it's ridiculous. Harlem, New York, she wasn't as
Yeah.
able to find these stories.
Yeah.
For me now, it burns me up living, you know, a half hour out of the city and going into my local bookstore and seeing one Brenda Jackson and one Beverly Jenkins and a full array of a white
Yeah.
author's catalog.
Well, it
I
turns
mean, that
into
shows how not readily available it still is. And that is the one, that's the whole idea of the single story, where if that one is taken off the shelf, how long before it's replenished? And it's not, you know, there's tons of other Black readers and they're shopping with me. They will think that there are no Black romance authors. Still, they'll think there are no Black romance authors. That's the problem. There's plenty of Black romance authors writing them, but the readers aren't able to see them because they're not on the shelves. That's the problem. So if you go to different places, you know, it still looks like they're not available, just like you were saying, but there are tons of writers writing them. They don't have the readers still don't have the discoverability of these authors. So like, I wasn't saying it right. So, but I was saying, you know, what you're saying is true. The books are out there, but they're not out there in front of people.
Well,
and that's the problem.
I think,
like I
I think this will probably come back up within
they're
Q&A.
like, you're like, yeah, you know.
No, you're fine, because you
Yeah.
guys are bringing up really excellent points just about marketing, distribution.
Yeah,
you know, the heavy lifting that publishing and all that on the back end has to do. I just want to remind our audience that you guys are able to ask questions. I guess there's a function where you put it in the Q&A, and I will get to those questions when we are finished. But I do want to switch gears and talk about your readership. I know that we want to make our books enjoyed by the masses, by all. We want most readers to identify with our characters and find something within our books that speaks to them. But I want to talk about those really gratifying, exciting moments when a reader who looks like you gives you feedback and says, okay, thank you for this. And Suleikha, I would like to start with you.
It's so sad because I had a whole answer worked out for the previous question, and now that's gone.
Oh no!
I even watched the TED Talk. I watched the TED Talk this morning.
I watched the TED Talk too.
I'm glad you did.
Yes. Anyway, that's all right. Moving on.
We can circle back around because
Yeah.
I do know that the Southeast Asian experience is going to have a lot of different stories too.
Yes,
But
yes.
we'll get
And
back to
actually, it sort of does tie into reader feedback for me because oddly enough, people think, you know, Indian narratives, South Asian narratives, Bangladesh, Pakistan, India, that it's all the same, right? And you know, that we all should be writing like a certain kind of narrative, but it's not true. Like we all have different stories with different heat levels and, you know, different backgrounds. So for me, the most gratifying feedback from other South Asians is when they appreciate how sexy my books are. Because I always worry that you know, they're too steamy. As my mom loves the word steamy, so she likes to call my books. Do they have some steamy in them? I'm like, yes.
Oh,
Steamy.
Some steam. Is there some steamy? I'm like, yes. So I appreciate it when you know, people will say they enjoy the fact that these characters are having fully realized, you know, high heat romances, because it's sort of gratifying to know that, you know, we're allowed to have those things. We're allowed to have kisses and foreplay and hot sex and all those things, you know, and reclaim those things. So, because I worry, like anyone, like, oh my God, what if my aunties read this? You know, like it's.
Well, I was going to ask, can you describe what that means to you writing as a Southeast Asian author? Like is it repression? And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but like, is that just kind of like, you know, have some decorum about you?
Yeah, pretty much. I feel like it's almost like, you know, everyone assumes that, you know, India is like the cradle of the Kama Sutra and everyone's out there, you know, handing it out on street corners and banging every which way. But
no, we don't assume that. I don't assume that.
Some people do. I don't know.
Some
but
people do. Yeah.
Some people do, and especially in historical romances. So I think there is a lot of repression in Indian society, at least in the regions I'm familiar with. And again, joy and passion are not, you know, you don't get told that it can be fun, right?
Yeah.
And so it's important for me to put out there that it can be fun, that and I'm not the only one. There's so much Indian romance out there that is tackling this, you know, authors writing now like Nisha Sharma and Alyssa Rai.
Yes.
The entire Harlequin Mills and Boone had Indian romance authors writing category length Indian romances that were just beautiful. And there's a thriving indie publishing that covers both India and the diaspora. You know, so there's so many of us trying to educate and celebrate passion in the Indian narrative, and for Indian women and Indian men and queer characters, and I don't even know where I was going with that, but I think I've wandered so far afield. So to me, again, having readers appreciate, you know, the passion is really really important to me, and really gratifying.
That's good. Thank you for pointing that out and tying it back to the last question. Roselle, can you speak to this? You know, what kind of feedback you've gotten?
The best ones that I've gotten were somebody saying, I feel seen. Like just those simple words of I feel seen. And the other thing that I really enjoy getting is like readers telling me, oh my God, you actually understand how food is a language of our culture. How much, it's not about just listing the food, it's how it interacts, how, like, for instance, like if you have two people that are fighting in your family, your aunt will bake that favorite thing, not to say sorry, but to present it to the offended person and go, here's your favorite soup, you know, it's like as a peace offering. Or how like meals are a way to get people together so they can hash out their stuff. Like it's not like that's one of those cultural things that it just makes me really happy, because I really put a lot of thought into food, into my books.
Yes, we need it.
Perfect.
We need those recipes too. But yeah, somebody has reached out to you and said, you know, you understand the food language. You've written it, the food love language, I guess you could say. And, you know, and that's really special to hear. I would say from my own experience, it's been nice hearing from young Black college-age women who are reading my academic romances, and they're like, first of all, is this what our professors are up to? No, it isn't. But second of all, it's really nice to see a Black woman going through academia, getting herself together, finding love, trouncing over these microaggressions that happen in the workplace. Like, as a student, you know, I've had a couple of readers say, I've already seen this happen to me as a student. God forbid I become a professor and have to deal with this kind of stuff. And that makes a difference to me. It makes me feel very, very happy. Kwana, what do you think?
For me, some of the nicest things, especially during this time, I've had people say that, you know, the book has made them feel good, and you know, been a joyful book that's gotten them through this time, which has been nice. Yes. And I've gotten some wonderful, from Real Men Knit, some wonderful feedback from some Harlem nights that said it made them feel like they were really at home. And some that they missed, that they really felt like they were back home in New York, and some that they missed New York, who were away from New York, and they miss Harlem.
You and Alyssa both have your current books set in Harlem, both tackling kind of gentrification, right?
Mine's Harlem, Alyssa's Brooklyn. Alyssa's in Brooklyn in her book, yeah. So when I got that feedback of I miss home, and I felt like, oh, I didn't mess that up. I did that right. That made me feel good. Yeah, really. Because
apparently they'll jump you.
Am I? No, she liked it. She won't jump me.
I just have to put on record that I would not jump anyone. If I was going to fight anyone, I would do it one-on-one. I would not jump. Okay.
You won't bring a crew?
No crew.
And thank you to Charish. I just saw your message in the chat. Sorry, I just had to leave because my dogs were freaking out and I needed to make sure nothing was going on.
So you still had a house out there?
Yeah. I guess for me, you know, like Roselle said, when people say that they feel seen, and it happens on, you know, a few levels, because I'm writing various different subgenres. So, you know, in the historical sense, but also, you know, and in contemporary romance, but also with Blackness, but also with neurodivergency.
Yes.
A lot of people, you know, before where is it?
A Duke by Default.
Part of the heroine's journey is discovering that she has ADHD, which was also my journey. And it was, you know, I didn't really realize it when I started the book, but when, you know, right before it came out, I was so worried that like everyone was going to hate her. which is a very ADHD feeling, obviously. And then so many people were like, oh no, this is me. And so for me, I think that's been the most gratifying experience of not just for myself, but to have so many readers who on some level all thought I am this singularly messed up person. And then it's like, no, we are legion. So I think that, you know, so things like that where people, just knowing that people who have felt alone in any kind of way have read something, you know, in my book, and just how I've read things in other people's books and been affected. I guess that's like the best feeling.
It is. It is. Yeah. Oh, that makes me all warm and tingly. Thank you guys for those answers. It's just, you know, a call back to thank the readers who are continually putting us out there, sharing the links, renting at the library, buying at the bookstores. It's a thank you to you guys, because your feedback is quite important, and we want to make sure that we get some of representation mostly correct. We can't do it correctly all the time, but we are trying our best, and we really want to entertain you guys. I have a fun little question here. It is the little nugget of identity that you kind of slipped into your writing and you chuckled to yourself. Something that is kind of what is the one inside racial ethnicity joke that you stuck in your book and you were like, oh, some people are gonna know what I'm talking about. It could be a turn of phrase, it could just, you know, it could be a food, what have you.
I struggle with this when you said that question. I was like, what did I do? Because I'm one of these writers, and I don't know if you guys do this, but probably so. I write it and forget it. It's like once it's written, I'm like, I don't know who wrote that. People might tell me something that I wrote, and they're like, when you said, I was like, who said that? It's like the gift. Who said that? Who said that? I never remember. So I was like, what did I say? I'm sure I said a lot, because my characters are very much in their head, and they just like ramble on like Kwana does, which is very bad. But now that you said a food, I can remember this. I'll put it one more time because it's new. People, you'll like it. You'll get it. You'll enjoy it. I have gotten so many people on Twitter who have written to me and asked me what a chopped cheese is. because I put a chopped cheese in there, and Jesse enjoys chopped cheeses from the bodega down the street, because they make chopped cheeses, and I did not think it was a big deal, because like, go get a chopped cheese, or go get a steak and cheese, or go get a bacon, egg, and cheese, like, you know, these things are very normal in New York to do.
Since I'm just a Long Island girl, can you tell the viewers what a chopped cheese?
A chopped cheese, it's like a hoagie. Chopped cheese is like a chopped hamburger with cheese and stuff that they make at the bodega, and it's a thing. I can send a link. I'll put it on Twitter. But luckily. And honestly, and people are like, do you have a chopped cheese? And I was like, well, I have to fess up. Honestly, I like a steak and cheese. The chopped cheese is my brother's thing. He likes to eat a chopped cheese. So I text him. I was like, chopped cheese goes good with this line, because I go and get a bacon, egg, and cheese, or I go get a steak and cheese. So I was like, what do you like on your chopped cheese? And he told me. So that's where I came up with the chopped cheese for Real Men Knit. But it's such a famous thing that the Times did an article on it. So now when people ask me, I send them the link from the New York Times as to what is a chopped cheese. So
there you go. So that is a little nugget of fun that you, or an Easter egg, you know, whatever is a part of your identity.
One of my identity things, yeah.
Anybody else?
I think just quickly, in the AI Who Love Me, I mean, in all of my books, I mean, it's just there. People they won't. But in the AI Who Love Me, the hero is a biosynthetic human who is learning how to be human, and his love interest is a Black woman. But also, one of the things when So just from the things that I look at on the internet were things that when he's going through his files or trying to search the internet for things. So there's one when he's trying to figure out her facial reaction, and he says it's a facial reaction from a video where the mom told the kid to take the frozen chicken out of the freezer. And I was like, if you get it, if you get it, you get it. If you don't, it's, I mean, you can understand the general aggravation if.
Yeah, we've all been
I know that video.
Yeah.
But if you do know, then it's like a little funny, like just imagining, you know, years in the future, some robot being like, oh.
The fear when you didn't take that chicken out.
Exactly.
And your mother's coming home in 15 minutes.
Yes, it is sheer panic, and there's nothing you can do. For me, I would say anytime in a romance novel, I can manage to slip in the fact that my heroine is wearing a satin bonnet to bed. And I don't think that's like me, but I think it's kind of a Black woman thing that that I frequent. I have to wear a satin bonnet or a silk pillowcase if I've got it, but that's something I stick in there just to make it feel like, okay, this is me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I tend to do that a lot, like all over my books, is just like sprinkle in all kinds of little cultural references. And the book I'm working on now actually has a secondary character who's Black, and I did mention that like her friend / boyfriend person has like a collection of silk bonnets for her. I was like normal. Yeah, I want to help normalize the bonnet as well. But in terms of South Asian nuggets, I think like mentioning aunties as much as possible is my cultural shout out.
Yes.
Like I think aunties are always up in our business lovingly, mostly lovingly. So I even slipped aunties into my paranormal romantic suspense because, you know, why not? You got to stop to talk about the gossipy and helpful aunties even in the middle of crisis. So
I can imagine like a car chase happening and getting a call from an auntie and like, oh, crap, I don't have time.
That would be great.
actually, I need to write that. Yeah, for book 3. I'm like, wait, car chase auntie. All right, I'm on it.
Roselle, what about you?
For my first book, I included all of my dad's recipes because he's the one who cooks in my family.
Oh,
It's like it's all the traditional stuff it's the stuff that I liked eating growing up.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is that there's no quantities in the recipes in the book because he sent me the recipe. I recreated it. I'm like, Daddy, why doesn't it taste right? And he's like, I told you it's 2 tablespoons. I'm like it's because you know how when you have like a relative who cooks the same thing over and over and they're so damn good at it, they don't measure. It's like a pinch. I'm using like 2 handfuls or whatever of this, and they don't measure anything, or like they will forget the steps that they're using to cook anything. So yeah, like in that first book, there's like spring rolls and like 7-Up shrimp, which is something that he really loves, which is he puts in shrimp with like a slice or 2 of ginger, some garlic, and steams that shrimp in them because shrimp is naturally sweet, and so is 7-Up. It really complements each other very well.
Oh, damn. Okay.
Honestly, I want to try this now.
Yeah.
sounds good.
Can you send us the recipe? I mean,
Well, wait,
it's in the back of the book.
It's in the book.
She goes, it's in the book. Get the book.
Yep.
it's in the book.
It's in the book. Get that book. I did the same thing actually in my Sugar Lake series. In my book, As Good as the First Time, I have recipes in the back, and they're all based off of my grandmother's recipes because she was a great baker and she passed away. And I was recreating her recipes, and I was like, she never measured a thing. Suddenly, I had to do these recipes and put them in there and figure out measurements. I was freaking out. I was like, I put disclaimers. I was like, okay, you all try to make this, and it's in the book. I was like, but if it comes out all right, it's thanks to my Nana. If it comes out bad, it's all my fault because seriously, I measured and I don't know if this is right. I made them, but it is what it is. They came out okay, is all I'm going to say. They're almost as good as Nana's, not quite as perfect as hers. It's all eyeballing and feel and taste. It is what it is.
It is. It's the feel. All right. I'm going to give you guys the last question before we open this up to our audience, who I'm sure they've got questions for us. You guys go ahead and put those Q&As together. All right, fairly quick, fairly easy. I want to see blank, and inside blank can be story, trope, what have you, but through blank perspective, and that blank is ethnic, racial perspective. So I want to see blank through a blank perspective. I'll go first, so we know where we are. I let this slip on Twitter, and I probably shouldn't have, but I'll do it again. I want to see True Lies, a True Lies narrative, Arnold Schwarzenegger and Jamie Lee Curtis, but told through a Black married couple perspective.
Oh, that would be good.
Yeah, and I've ruined it by putting it out there in the world. Hopefully I can
write it.
But you know, it doesn't matter what genre, because you guys are doing a lot of different subgenres. So think big, think wide. What do you want to see? You know, but make it Black or make it blank.
That's like everything I write.
Yeah, right.
I know, right? It's like, that's kind of what I do.
Right.
I don't know. Someone else go first.
Okay.
Yeah, one.
Oh,
Roselle has
go,
one.
Roselle.
I want to see the Real Housewife franchise, but from like Asians, East Asians.
Oh my
Yes,
gosh.
I want to see that too.
That's what I want to see.
That would be great.
Yes.
Perfect. Ooh.
Bravo, if you're watching,
Yes.
lend Roselle her money.
Oh, you better be careful, because
Right.
Andy stays looking out here. We are fumbling our bag right now.
Yeah,
Oh, go.
Suleikha?
Sorry, I was gonna.
No, go.
I want a baking series that is all South Asians, maybe siblings even, all in like some sort of family baking competition, finding love while they're all like, you know, competing on a cooking show. That's what I want. Give
Oh my
me-
gosh.
Yeah, so India, you know, South Asians and food and family rivalry is what I
That'd be
want.
fun. Ooh, family rivalry too.
Yeah, that
Um,
will make a great enemies to lovers, perhaps.
Yeah.
Okay.
okay, this is just the first thing that came to my mind.
What else we got?
Since you said True Lies and things. Okay, I want to see Romancing the Stone from Black, from African American or Black, or in an interracial perspective.
Okay.
Like a Romancing the Stone kind of thing.
Yeah.
Some sort of
I'm,
adventure
yes.
kind of movie thing. Yeah.
I'm down for that. Yes.
Going
I love
all
that.
around adventure thing.
Action adventure.
Action
Yes.
adventure, yeah.
I'm gonna cheat.
You're gonna what?
I said I'm gonna cheat.
Which of your books would you like to tell us about?
I'm sorry. It has to be something I love. I can't give out ideas at this point.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
But the book that I'm currently finishing is queer Anastasia retelling.
Oh.
And part of it is set on a boat. And so queer Black Anastasia is what I would want to see. And that's why I'm writing it. And I'm sorry for cheating. I'm also going to take all of you guys' ideas.
No, you can't take mine because now I want to write it.
kidding.
Now I'm like, I want to write it now.
No, all of you,
No, I shouldn't
please,
do that. It's like I have enough to
please.
write, but yeah.
No, add it to your to be written
Yeah.
list.
That is
yes.
cool.
For sure. Let's do that. All right. Now we have homework. God damn it.
Oh, no. Why'd you ask that question? Don't give any homework. That's not
I'm
cool.
sorry.
I know, 'cause, yeah, you guys get on your series, please. Can you get on those series? for
Can I
us?
just watch Bake Off instead? Like,
Nope. Now you both have to write those.
darn.
All right.
Write them so that they can get done for us, and then we can watch them. Thank you.
Well, that's all the questions that I have for you. I'm going to turn it over to the audience, and I will just be reading what they have sent us. Earlier in the afternoon, we got a question from Charish. I don't know if Charish is here right now. Charish, shout out. Okay, if you are there, you asked, as a woman, okay, as a woman of color who's been a fan of romance novels forever, I'd like to thank you all for your work. Of all the things, I know, of all the things you've written, characters you've created, who is your favorite and why?
Isn't that hard?
I have mine.
It's like,
Okay.
do yours first, Charish.
Yours first.
All right. And I haven't been showing off any of these titles. Jeez. Okay. Hearts on Hold. In this book, we have, a Black woman professor and a sexy children's librarian, and they get together and make all the passionate love. But I have to say, one of my favorite characters to write in that novel was a 12-year-old girl perspective. I mean, her name is Becca. Our sexy librarian, John, is taking care of her while her mom is out of the country working. And just the fun nonsense that she gets to say, as the speaker of her. She's mouthy, she's got attitude, but she's going through stuff that I probably went through as a 12-year-old. And it was really fun to make a cool kid.
Yeah.
And I liked her, and I'm hoping that, there's more awesome kids that I can write. I love writing my heroes, of course, but I really liked writing this 12-year-old Black girl who's going through stuff like 12-year-olds tend to go through. All right, you guys.
Well, I usually say it's the one that I just finished, right? Or something like that. For me, I don't have the books with me because they're over there, so I won't get up. You can see this book cover right behind me. That's from my book Bounce. It's one of my first indie titles. And Sabrina Jacobs was the heroine in that book. It's more of a women's fiction, and she's sort of more of a sort of every woman kind of living in a small Westchester town. And I sort of think about her a lot and all the time, because maybe she's a little bit of me in certain ways, because she's like one of the only Black women in her town kind of situations. And it's like, I wonder what she'd be doing now. Probably what I'm doing, sitting in the same room for 9 months on pandemic time. So, I enjoyed writing her and meandered with her a long time because she was one of my first books. So I got to hang out with her so I think I got to know her the best since I hung out with her for a year and a half. So she was enjoyable. And, but I love all my heroines. I think each of my heroines maybe take a little bit of me in each one, and my characters are all living on somewhere, and I think about what they're doing. So it's like they're all just living, breathing people. But I'm really enjoying the heroine I'm writing right now, which is chasing after Keanu Reeves. So I'm finishing her up. So that's who I'm enjoying now. So yeah,
Excited for that.
yeah.
Yes.
I'm excited for it too. So yes.
What about you guys?
Anybody else? Jump on in there.
Favorite characters?
For me, it's the book that I just finished, and it's about a matchmaker who's trying to match 7 old grumpy Chinese bachelors. And I had such a fun time writing about these 7 old men. It's completely going back, thinking about all this time I spent with my grandparents, and how fun that is and what their quirks are. And it's been a blast. I'm going to have to revise this book now. I just finished the first draft, which is great.
Ooh, congratulations.
So, yeah, it was just really fun. Just thinking about what old men like kind of spying. Like I've been spying on them in coffee shops anyway, just to see what they talk about and like what the gossip is, what they really talk about, like what they eat and stuff. And it's like, it's great. It's been a joy to write.
Nice. All right.
Yeah. I think that helped me with my answer because I was torn. I was like, well, I love all my heroines, but you know, but I actually, one of my short stories, it's called A Taste of Blessings. It's in one of my self-pub anthologies called Dil or No Dil. And it takes place at a Hindu festival being held in Cincinnati, where I grew up. And it kind of just mirrors my experience growing up in Cincinnati and going to these regional cultural festivals. And I built this little community of uncles and aunties and everyone just talking over each other and gossiping. And I think those are some of my favorite characters because they are directly lifted from my own experience and that sense of camaraderie and community. And the heroine's dad in it is basically my dad. Like we lost him 6 years ago. He's no longer with us, but I feel like I captured a little bit of my dad in that short story in A Taste of Blessings. And so that will always hold a special spot in my heart. Like, so that's
nice.
I don't know. For me, it's kind of hard. I do love each character in different ways because they have different aspects of me and things that I care about. But I think as far as like favorite, and it's hard to narrow down a character, but kind of as a unit, Nia and Johan and the Prince on Paper.
Yes.
Who are two cinnamon rolls of varying flavors, I guess. She's the sweet cinnamon roll. He's the fuckboy flavored cinnamon roll, which I don't know what that flavor is. But they both are good, soft people who have responded to the world in different ways. And kind of writing them was fun because he's outgoing and she's kind of a bit naive, so it's like a rake and a wallflower thing, but like kind of playing with that and with those particular characters was fun for me.
I love
That's awesome. Yeah, they were great. We got a question from I hope I'm saying this right, Charish Jackson. And this one is specifically for Kwana. For Real Men Knit, what made you have male characters, especially Jesse, show their true emotions? Like, I guess, how did you do it?
That wasn't so hard. I'm the oldest girl. I have only brothers. So I've written sister stories before because it's like, oh, it'd be nice to have sisters. So that I've explored that. But writing brothers and writing men sort of feels very natural to me and comes a little easy. Sometimes writing women is my voice, and that's sort of like, the voice in my head, and that comes easy, but sometimes it's a little harder because it's like, oh, I'm letting myself go. But writing men is sort of just like listening to me. I have twins. I have boy-girl twins. I've been married forever. It's not nice to say. I just had an anniversary. Just had my 31st anniversry. Isn't that crazy? So it's like men are just like all around me. So it sort of feels easy. And the men in my life probably won't like me saying this, but they're very, very chatty and very emotional men that are around me. They go on and on and on. So it's like. And I'm very lucky to say that. They give me a lot of crap sometimes. They make me crazy, but they're very, very much I love you men, and very much even when we're not speaking, we're still speaking. If it's not in the nicest ways, it's still an I love you. We're very an open family, very cryy family, very all of that. So it felt like a natural thing to do. People are shocked, men knitting and things like that, but having boy-girl twins, I never sort of separated my kids' activities. You know, my son did do baseball, my daughter did do dance, but when it came to crafts and choices and those things, I gave them choices. I taught my son how to knit just the same way I taught my daughter how to knit. When I was knitting, I was like, oh, to my husband, you want me to teach you how to knit? I taught him. He didn't keep it up, but then after the book, I retaught him, and now he enjoys knitting because it's sort of meditative for him. So every once in a while, he's like, oh, teach me how to cast on again. And then he'll just be sitting there just knitting as a thing to enjoy. It's not something that's an odd thing for me, so it just felt natural.
Nice. I
Yeah.
love it. This is a question from Mia Betts. What was a recent romance novel you loved, or a book from another genre? Okay, so recent romance that you loved, or something from a different genre.
I can start with the recent romance that I loved, which is Courtney Milan's The Duke Who Didn't.
I just downloaded it.
Yeah, speaking of books that are like, you know, people wanting joy and food, it's like a serious, it's a historical romance. The heroine is Chinese British.
Oh.
Of course. I've been like talking about this book for the past few weeks.
I'm
sorry, I'm responding to the
it.
chat, like not just talking to myself. But yeah, so basically, you know, it's historical romance with multicultural leads. The heroine is Chinese British. The hero, who is a duke, is half Chinese, and the heroine is making a sauce, trying to start a sauce empire, and they love cooking. Her father cooks, and and the town is multicultural, and it's kind of like there is this fun event, and it's a childhood friends to lovers. And you know, a lot of people have said it, but also for me reading it, it was just a very comforting book. So for romance, I would say that, and trying to think of other genres. So I'll pass it off for now.
Oh.
Okay, I finished and loved The Hidden Moon by Jeannie Lin, which is the third in her Lotus Palace mystery series, which was a gorgeous duology she wrote for Harlequin years and years ago, and it really just didn't get its due. For my money, she's one of the best historical romance authors out there, and who's just like deeply undervalued for the work she does. And she released this third story, self-published, years after those first two, and it's in I'm going to pronounce it wrong because I don't speak Chinese. Tang Dynasty, China. A thief, like a shady kind of character, and a girl from a more higher social class. She always likes to sneak out and have adventures. So they end up solving a murder mystery together and dealing with their feelings, which have sort of carried through from previous books and shorts in the universe. And it's just beautiful. And I was really glad we finally got Wei Wei and Gao's story. So that was something that really made me happy recently.
Nice. Okay. I can say that I have done a terrible job of reading lately, but I did get an arc from a friend, Denise Williams, because I got the hookup. She's got How to Fail at Flirting coming out in December, so finished that. It was a stellar book. I'm excited for all of you guys to read it, unless you already have an arc and you're special or whatever. But it's gonna be
show off.
I know. But I really enjoyed it. You know, it's a Black female academic. I love that kind of stuff. I can't wait to see like more, you know, Black people in academia telling these stories. And, you know, trying to get her life while she's trying to maintain her job, get tenure, all that stuff, and, you know, get it on with a dude. Sorry, Denise, I'm not really talking this up very well, but, you know, it's great. Anybody else?
I'm gonna go a little off genre. I read a memoir recently. Well, not read, but audiobook. It's Dear Girls by Ali Wong. And she is like, her humor, it's like a stand-up set basically when you're listening to it, and you get to hear about her family and how she juggles, how she makes the marriage work, and how she deals with motherhood and her daughters, and how she started in stand-up. And I found it to be just fantastic. Like, if you want a good laugh, I highly recommend it.
Nice. Yeah. What was the movie that she was in that's named after?
Always Be My Maybe.
Yes.
Which I loved. Yeah.
Well, you know, for research, I just had to do a rewatch of that.
Okay.
Because I had to.
Right.
Because of Keanu. Yeah.
Because of Keanu.
It was required. So
yeah, she's hilarious.
So
and
funny.
It's nice to see her comedy tell another story. You know, it's a different story.
I'm gonna put that on my. I've got some credits, so I'm gonna put that on my Audible list.
Credits.
I've been terrible. I'm gonna show off like you, Cherish. I've been terrible at reading. I've been on deadline,
yeah.
which is good. But well, I'll forever big up the Boyfriend Project, which you can all still get from Farrah Rashan.
Yes.
It's fantastic. And I had also read, I don't have it in front of me, I do, Judge's Girl. No, Perfectly Imperfect from Sharina Harris. I love Sharina. Oh, there you are. You can see it, which is so great. Very, best friends, four best friends getting back together. And I haven't read it yet, but I just got it in the mail last week. I was able to get an arc of Sharina's newest Judge's Girls.
Oh, okay.
Pretty. Which comes out, when does that come out? Oh, I cannot see. Who knows? Oh, it comes out at the end of this month. Okay. So you can pre-order Judge's Girls now from Sharina Harris. Sharina is fantastic, so I will recommend Sharina Harris.
Nice.
Sure, it's wonderful. Sort of women's fiction, romantic women's fiction. Okay. She's fantastic. So I'll recommend Sharina.
I think somebody in the
and somebody said it's on audio sale. Oh, that might be Allie's or Sharina's.
Farrah's book is on sale today, maybe.
Is it?
Yeah, for $6 apparently. Oh, nice. In audio. I'm like, do that.
Grab it.
Get out there.
Get out there and grab it. Thank you for that.
We have a question from Eunice Kim. Do you ever put friends or family in your books as fun cameos or anything like that? We might have touched on that.
I'll never admit to it.
Yeah. I don't talk about that. Because that's what they ask me. Am I in your book? Get out of here.
Yeah, no.
My family reads my book, so I'm not putting them in there so they can be like, is this me? No. Definitely not.
No.
I also do have to tell my mom.
Let me get a cut. No, I didn't get no money.
Because when I write parents who are not nice, I know my mom reads my books. I'm like, it's not based on you. Don't worry. It's fiction.
Yeah.
She'll be like, I don't remember doing that to you as a child.
Right.
Where did this come from?
Yeah. The only time I've done that is as I said earlier, with A Taste of Blessings, where the heroine's dad was basically my dad. That was it. And even if he had still been alive, he wouldn't have read it. He was like, should I get a Kindle? I was like, no, you're not getting a Kindle, so you can read my
You said no, you're getting anything. Should I get a Kindle? No, you're getting another tie.
Exactly. That's that tie and some Old Spice. We're not giving you a Kindle to have.
No Kindle for you.
Yeah.
I will admit, since she already knows and she's watching right now, and she'll call me out on it later, my older sister is loosely tied to the older sister in The Right Escape, Octavia, because she's sensible, she's organized, she has her life together, and of course the little sister in this,
she's like, yeah.
The little sister in this is, a little all over the place. So I will say that.
I was gonna say my family doesn't read my books, but my brother, I put it on Instagram. My brother sent me a picture of him reading Real Men Knit the other day, and I was like, because normally they don't read past the dedications and the acknowledgments. So I put them in there and then they stop. My mother does not. My mother will hand sell a book on the bus. She gives out cards. She tells everybody about her daughter, the author. She's the best PR woman, but she won't read, which is great. I'm like, don't read it. But my brother, I guess he is reading them, which is very kind. He sent me a lovely picture reading it. So I'm like, uh-oh.
That's good. No, I love
nice.
it.
Yeah.
Charisse asks us another question. Do you have any favorite place to write or somewhere that motivates you to write? So I'm guessing where we're sitting, our location.
My bed. My bed.
Yeah.
You're right. Who said my bed?
Alyssa did.
Alyssa, you do. I've written. I need to go back to writing in my bed. I wrote most of my books on my bed. I need to go back to doing that.
Yeah, before I moved, my bed had like this indent,
Mm-hmm.
my writing indent on the side where I sat, where I wrote. But yeah, when I can't focus at my desk, I go get in bed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This right here, this handle, this is where I write. Like this is my desk.
That's where the magic begins. Okay.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah,
Roselle?
this is where I write too, but I told you all already that I love writing in coffee shops just because pre-pandemic, because it lets me get out, eat some tasty treats, drink some coffee, and like eavesdrop, because eavesdropping is fun.
People watch.
People watching. Yeah.
People watching.
Yeah.
After the pandemic, I might actually start going out and doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. You never know. I'm writing from what is basically the living room of our Swedish apartment. It's a desk that faces a couple of windows. So I'm looking at a window here, there's a window here. Major distraction because everybody that walks by with a dog, anybody that walks by with a baby, somebody scootering, somebody falls off a bike, I'm there. And
I feel that my desk also faces a window, but I mostly keep one half of the curtain closed because at one point there was I'm on an island, and there was always like a sheep on the hill before there were trees, and then the neighbor cut the trees and I could see the hill, and there would just be like a sheep standing there. And then like sometimes it would turn its head and I would turn my head like, are we communicating? What is happening? And then I'm like, it's like, of course that disrupts the train of thought and the day is ruined because the sheep was looking at me. And
I would be so into that sheep. I would be like,
and then like other chickens walk by. It's like Animal Crossing hill for some reason. The neighbor sometimes they have turkeys, so turkeys it's a lot. So the curtain has to stay closed. Serious business.
that's true. Because animals are highly distracting. Alyssa, we've got a specific question from you, from Jaira. And this is interesting. For Alyssa Cole, is the secret leadership dynamic between Queen Shanti Mahapi and King Sanyu an allegory to the biblical story of Esther? Okay. This feels like English class.
That is a good question. I actually didn't think of that because I'm not that smart. I was thinking more of 1001 Nights, and kind of meeting it, because in the story their marriage arrangement. So it's kind of a mix of the Bluebeard fairy tale and 1001 Nights, except without killing. So in this kingdom, this kingdom has been, it's kind of, it's a fictional kingdom in central-ish Africa, like most of the kingdoms in the Reluctant Royals and Runaway Royal series. It's a fictional kingdom. And it's kind of after colonization, there was a bit of civil war, unfortunately, and then they united under a king, bringing back the traditions that were there before colonization. And so he ruled for like 50 years. And then his son now is taking over. He has passed away. His son is taking over. And he's spent his entire life being told, you know, having it drilled into him that he has to keep the kingdom state safe and be strong enough to keep the kingdom safe. But one of the aspects that he grew up with is that there is a marriage trial to find the true queen. So basically, it's a completely arbitrary thing where the king marries a woman, and it's a 4-month trial. If within that 4-month trial she doesn't show that she's the true queen, then she's sent away. Eventually, he marries another woman for 4 months, and so on to find the true queen. So he spent his whole life watching women come and go. Nothing bad happens to them except, nothing overtly bad happens to them. They live in the palace for 4 months.
Their heads.
Oh, that's a spoiler. But I mean, obviously I'm not gonna have a book with a serial killer. This is romance, not a thriller. No, there are no serial killers in this book, even though she tries to figure out what happens to the queen. But basically, yeah, it's kind of this idea of when we meet in the book, they're at month 3, and she has barely gotten to know him because he's been grieving, he's dealing with anxiety, he's become a new king, and she has been spending her entire life trying to become a queen because that was her goal. She became very focused and said, this is what I'm going to do. I could literally be anything. I'm going to be a queen though, because I want that particular kind of power to help people. And yeah, so it's basically, it isn't an Esther allegory, though maybe that works. But she's basically in a place where in this kingdom, she has finally become a queen, and it's a kingdom where queens don't really have any power. So she's trying to, you know, says 1001 Nights, he comes to her for political advice. And then she's like, this is my opportunity to like get my foot in the door here. And of course they start to fall in love. And like, she's not looking for love either. She's like, I'm here trying to become a queen. Let's see. So yeah, so it's Bluebeard, non-murder Bluebeard plus 1001 Nights.
Grabby hands. I would like this in my hands right now.
I know, yeah. And that's a really good question, Jara.
Yeah, that was a great question.
Yeah, like English class stuff, you know?
I know.
I was like, oh. Later on, you'll see me being like, yes, it's an Esther. And it is not. That didn't.
Absolutely, I was thinking of that.
That did not pass through. That did not pass through my mind. I won't even pretend. But it's a great connection.
Okay. Communications major. Here we go. Nice. Okay, so one last question from Charisse, and I think we might have to wrap it up somehow. And this is probably a question for all of us. As a reader, I want to access all of your work in a way that compensates you. What are the different ways readers can get your books, ways that compensate you? And that's an interesting question. Because I feel like this might have layers. I know for me, all of my books are, well, they're ebooks for the moment, you know. But, you know, compensation looks different between buying. We are also compensated when you go to the library, too. So
yeah, I think, you know, the easiest things for readers to do are, you know, buy books if you can. I know it's not always accessible for everyone, especially because this is an international panel, but if you can buy from your local indie store, bookstore, or, you know, order from there's also asking your local library to buy the book, which does so much for authors, because if the library doesn't have it, you can fill out a request form usually. Then the librarians know that people want the book, they buy the book, and everyone in your library system then has access, and then they might say, hey, I want to read the other books from this person, or I might want to buy this book for my personal collection. And so if you don't have money to actually buy the book yourself, because times are hard, like you can just ask the libraries, and if they have money, then they will purchase the book. Also letting publishers know when you enjoy books from marginalized authors. If you have social media and you can, you know, talk about books that you enjoyed, if that's something you're comfortable doing. letting publishers know that you're enjoying these books and that you're glad they're there is helpful, because then they will acquire even more books from marginalized people. Hopefully, that is the dream.
Yeah.
And they know that this is what people are enjoying reading, and they can stop, like, you know, pretending that there isn't a market for it.
Right.
We need more joy.
We do.
Exactly
We
what
do.
Alyssa said.
And I want to
I'm
say
making
library.
fun.
Yeah, I want to praise libraries as well. All of my indie published and self-published stuff is actually available through Overdrive, so you can get it from your libraries without, you know, the library spends the money, so you don't have to.
That's right.
And even me, like, I will put a book on hold at my local, you know, through interlibrary loan and get something, and then maybe 2 weeks later, my home branch will have bought a copy of it because I put it on hold, which makes me so happy. Every time they see that you have interest in an author or a title, it encourages them to order more. And so that's really important. And again, libraries do pay for our books, so we do get compensated.
Same with mine.
Yeah.
It makes me very happy. I'm never upset when people send me pictures of my books from the library. And you know, I want to express I publish under 2 names. I've got Real Men under Kwana Jackson, but I've got 11 other titles under KM Jackson. So please look for that other lady. She's okay too. She writes fun romantic comedies.
That's
too.
right.
And some are indie and some are traditional published. So yes, you know, please go to your library, and like Alyssa said, please contact the publishers if you've enjoyed our titles or any other titles by
and
marginalized authors.
Contacting can even be just like when you tweet, tagging them.
When you tweet,
Yes.
or tell
Or
a
when you
friend,
put
you know,
or you
if you're
put it
the
on
reviewing type,
Bookstagram.
you know, leave a review, or just, you know, tell somebody, you know, getting the word out means so much, you know.
Yeah.
And if you if you go to your indie bookstore and you don't see it, asking them to order it for you, or going to your local bookstore and asking them to order a copy.
And
if you don't
online,
see it, that would be great.
And online, you can order through indiebound.com or bookshop.com for indie bookstores.
Yes. If you don't have any indie bookstores near
usually,
you.
I have the links on my website. A lot of us have the links to all of these places on our websites.
Amazon, Kobo, you know, Amazon, Kobo, iBooks, Barnes and Noble, you know, Bookshop. There's so many ways to get our books and enjoy our work, and libraries. So there's so many options out there. You know, just look, we're here.
We're here. Yes, to bring up what Alyssa pointed out earlier, this idea of we need joy. It's out there. Do the research. You know, look through all of it's not just a Latina Heritage Month. It's not just a Black History Month thing. It's not just
it's not just a month.
No, it's not just a month. You can do this research all year round.
All year round.
Yeah. And it's also, you know, every story, I feel, you know, it's important to point out that every story is valid. You know, they're joyful stories, they're sorrowful stories, and that's in every culture. And that's what makes, you know.
Yeah, because
that's what makes it. I don't know. I don't have the right words, but you know what I mean.
Every
story
is
valid.
Stories are valid, but in this moment, joyful stories are
joyful
really
stories,
needed.
the stories that aren't so joyful, but there's joy in the terrible times too. You know, we're all going through a horrible time right now. Collectively, we're going through this horrible time. But then you have to find, you know, something in these moments, you know, this horrible moment we're having right now. But the 5 of us and 6 with Chris are able to communicate and have this moment. So there's something there, you know?
I agree. And I think we will close it out there. I just want to thank everybody, participants, all of you wonderful ladies, Chris Ellis for putting this together, the audience, of course. Thank you guys for just loading up the comments and encouraging us to have this conversation.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank
for
you,
giving.
Cherish.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Cherish.
Thank you.
And thank you all for giving me a reason to get out of bed at 10 a.m.
I'm so happy to see you.
So happy to see all of you.
I'm
Thank
happy
you
to
so
see
much.
everyone. Happy to see all of you. Did somebody just go by?
It's
It's
nighttime.
nighttime now.
Oh, it's night. Yeah, it is nighttime there.
Yes. Thank you all again. This was absolutely wonderful and a really awesome way to just kick off the rest of these panels that are coming up soon. Go visit the Frankfurt Book Fair website for romance and diversity. You're going to find a ton more panels that deal with size, body size, disability, things like that. All the things that we care about within romance. All right.
Right.